So we have Sony's first release of 2020 in Patapon 2 HD Remaster, and to be honest, it's probably going to be my favourite game from Sony's for the year. I'm a huge fan of Patapon, or at least I have become one. I actually didn't get a chance to play these games on the original PSP, so I only discovered the series with the remaster of the first one, which was, 2 or 3 years ago now. And having now played the second one, it's improvement in just about every way, and it's a really great game. So yes, I am expecting that this will be my favourite game from Sony for the year. Even though it is a HD remaster of an older game, I guess it shows it's a side of Sony that we don't see so much of anymore, and it's a side that I wish we did see a whole lot more of, because this kind of thing is really creative, it's inventive, it's charming, it's fun, and it's really well made and does things a little bit differently. I think Sony is so wrapped up in doing the HD big blockbuster stuff now, because that stuff sells consoles, and I can't really begrudge them for doing that. But in doing so, they don't really have the resources for this kind of really creative small stuff anymore, and we don't see nearly as many of them. So yeah, it's good to see this kind of thing, and I'm really enjoying my time with it. If you've never played a Patapon game before, then it's definitely worth, I guess, getting into the series with the second one. It is an enhancement in just about every way over the first, but the base game is much the same. It is a rhythm game in which you need to input one of a series of different commands in time with the beat of the music in order to get your little characters, the Patapon, to do actions. So to start with, you'll only have the action to move them forwards or to attack the enemy. Later on you get additional actions. Actually, it's quite early on that you also get the ability to defend from enemy attacks, and then you need to, again in time with the music, pick the right command to use at that point in time in order to make sure that your Patapon are able to defeat the enemies while not getting killed themselves. So you need to be able to read the movements of the enemies, you need to be able to respond in quick, you need to be able to think and respond quite quickly to the situation of the game at the time, in order to make sure that you're defending when the enemy's attacking, and so on and so forth. So it is a very kind of rhythmical game, and it's got this great ebb and flow to it. So you'll move forward a bit, you'll come in contact with an enemy, and you'll get into this kind of rhythmic dancing where you attack, then defend, then attack, then defend. It's got this kind of really nice pull and thrust to it, which plays out really nicely, and it's really elegant and it's really clever. And the enemy attack patterns are really interesting, and all along the music has this really great earthy beat to it, so you're really feeling it. Every time I play Patapon, I'm tapping my foot along with the beat as I play, and it really, it's really immersive. It's one of those kind of ones that gets to you at a kind of primal level, and you just get right into the experience, and it's great. And even the best rhythm games really struggle to kind of hook you into that depth where you really feel like you're participating in the music and you're a part of it. So while it doesn't look like one of the kind of top flight rhythm games out there, Patapon 2 and 1 before it are certainly examples of really great rhythm game thought and creativity, and how to present it in a way that becomes really engaging. There are strategy game elements to it as well. You can actually set up your team based on what you think you'll come up against in the level, so you can have kind of frontline fighters, archers at the back, and you can give them all little bits of equipment as well. As you move through the game, you get kind of better items which you can equip individual Patapon with, which helps them to be better fighters. And so there's that kind of very light RPG style mechanic in there as well. Whenever you equip one of your Patapons with a different bit of equipment, it actually shows up on the screen, so there's this really kind of great vibrancy by the end of it. And when you're going into a level and you've got this horde of little Patapon, each of which has their own personality because they're wearing different clothing and equipment, and then coupled with the kind of rhythmic music and the earthiness of it all, as well as the really kind of lovely minimalist aesthetic, it just becomes this really kind of mesmerizing, immersive game experience that is that balance between strategy and rhythm game, and it's challenging without being brutally unfair. If you haven't got a great sense of rhythm, you will find this game a little bit more difficult because it can be unforgiving. Doing really well at Patapon really kind of relies on you getting to fever state, which means that you're going through the rhythms for a prolonged period of time without making mistakes. If you make a mistake, then the rhythm, the fever status is gone, and you need to slowly build back up to that, which can be quite dangerous when you're facing off against a dinosaur or something like that can really munch down on your Patapon. So yeah, you do need a sense of rhythm. The game does a really good job of teaching you how to play it, but without that sense of rhythm, you will find this game a little bit more challenging. That being said, Patapon 2 has 3 difficulty levels, and the easiest difficulty level is really quite reasonable. I think just about anybody will find it possible. I can't remember if the original Patapon had difficulty levels. For some reason, I think it didn't. So that was one thing that was added to Patapon 2 that made it much more accessible, I think, for more players. But anyway, I would imagine that pretty much anybody who would be interested in playing Patapon 2 HD Remastered already knows what Patapon is, so this video has been a little bit redundant to date. But I guess the main reason I wanted to do this video is just highlight again that Sony has this side of the business that I really loved through the PlayStation 3 and PSP and into the Vita era, where there were all these really creative, original, interesting ideas that the company was really backing, not just throwing out there in January because they needed a run rate game to keep the revenue ticking over like Patapon here obviously is, but Sony back in that generation was really pushing for creative ideas. There was stuff like Puppeteer and Rain and so many PSP and early PlayStation Vita games, none of which were major kind of blockbuster stuff. But they showed that the company wanted to have a range of things, because you were still getting the blockbuster games as well. You're still getting the Uncharted's and the Last of Us and all of that kind of stuff. But there was a balance there for people that liked the games a little bit more creative and artistic. You could pick up the unfinished Swan and play that instead if you wanted to. And I think that Sony has missed that a little bit in recent times. And again, once again, I don't blame Sony for going after the blockbusters, because that's where the console sales come from and that's where the money comes from. But to look, in contrast to Nintendo, Nintendo's had a great deal of success with the Switch this generation, and a big part of that success has been the variety of experiences. Nintendo has pushed out, big blockbuster stuff, such as Mario Odyssey and the Zelda Breath of the Wild and all that kind of stuff. But it has also engaged with a whole range of different smaller projects and creative ideas and things like that. So you had the Pokemon game, which sold gangbusters, of course. But then you also had Tokyo Mirage Sessions come out in January, which was a very kind of niche game for very hardcore JRPG enthusiasts. You had Box Boy come out last year, which was this kind of creative little 2D puzzler with a lot of charm and character. And in terms of the way it felt to play it, it's not that different to Patapon. It's that kind of really kind of engaging, different little experience. So Nintendo has been really good with that side of things, and these things come in waves, and I'm sure that Sony will once again indulge the creative side. And that's not to say that Sony doesn't have those kinds of games on the horizon as well. I mean, there's obviously Dreams coming this year, and Dreams looks like a very creative project in itself, but it would be nice to see more stuff like Patapon as well. It'd be great to see a new Patapon game, for example. Perhaps they could even look at doing a VR version or something to help push PlayStation VR again, because I don't think Patapon's done. From the 2 games that I've played now, I think there's still plenty of room for this series. I think there's a lot of ideas that can still be explored, and I think that there would be an audience for it. I think people like this kind of game and would like to see more of it from Sony. Anyhow, that's probably enough of a rant about this. Basically, I've been having a great time with Patapon. You can see my review for the game up on digitallydownloaded.net as well once I get it up there. If it's not up there by the time this video goes up, it will be very soon thereafter. I think it's great. It's going to be a very positive review. I think, like I've said through the video, that this is the kind of thing that I really like when Sony does, and I would like to see a lot more of it. Otherwise, yeah, hope you, if you've never played Patapon before, here's your big chance to get into it when the series, as small as a series is, was at its best. Here is the game that you definitely want to play. You can go back to Patapon 1 if you enjoyed this enough, but just be aware that it's not quite the same experience. This one was much more refined, much more in tune with what it wanted to do, and was a lot more successful with it. So yeah, definitely give it a go. Thanks as always for watching my videos. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed them. Yeah, please do like and subscribe to my channel to make sure that you don't miss out on any of them. And if you do like my videos and just want to throw me a couple of bucks via Patreon, the support in Patreon really does help me as well. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you at the next video.